Hey everyone, and welcome to the Uncorked Corner podcast, where we cover the full spread of food and beverage industry topics. My name is Bianca, PR and marketing professional by day, and food and wine connoisseur by night.
And my name is Nick, an accountant with a passion for barbecue, beer, and whiskey. Today we welcome Jim Denz. Jim is co-founder and head brewer at Island Dog Brewing in South Portland, Maine.
In today's episode, Jim walks us through the origins of Island Dog and his background in home brewing. We also discuss what goes into the making of various styles of beers and how ingredient selection can affect their flavor profile.
Bear with us as you will hear some audio differences due to technical difficulties from recording this in the recent storms. Our conversation with Jim makes this episode well worth the listen. On that note, let's get into the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. Let's start by having you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your professional background.
I'm Jim Denz. I'm one of the owners and head brewer of Island Dog Brewing. My background in brewing is I was a home brewer. I started home brewing in 1991, and my wife actually talked me into opening the brewery. I didn't have any professional brewing experience before I opened the brewery, just a home brewer.
All right, so we love Island Dog. I'm wearing my Island Dog hat now, rocking it. Definitely been down there and tried a lot of the beers. Can you tell us a little bit about the story behind Island Dog and how you and Tim actually got together, started the company, a bit about the name?
Sure. My wife and I started planning and talking to open the brewery back in 2015. I had met Tim a couple of years before that. He was also a home brewer, and we just had a lot of things that we liked and similar interests. Once my wife and I really started looking into opening brewery and getting going, I realized I can't do everything myself. Spoke to Tim, and he was interested. Tim's background is in marketing, and he also worked in a number of restaurants and bars. So the two of us complement each other well.
Nice. Now, being in Maine, I'm local. I'm always down there. With the tap room, I've been down there. It's an awesome place. Right now, what can people expect to go down there and find? I know I saw you had some outdoor dining and drinking last time I was around.
Yeah, our outdoor space is open. Unfortunately, we can't have anything inside a tap room. And we are dog friendly, so people are welcome to bring the dog down to the patio. We are doing all our beers on draft. We're doing flights. And we started canning everything, or almost everything, earlier this year, which turned out to work in our favor when the shutdown came, because we were able to keep selling beer. Unfortunately, we can't have any of our games and stuff out, but still sit outside. Luckily, we have some good summer weather and drink a nice beer.
Yeah, it's been hot out. We'll have to get my dog down there soon.
Yeah, it's right near you, Nick, so that's a perfect fit. You have a whole bunch of beers. I know you've had about 35, it looks like, on your website since opening. What do you have right now for the beer selection, and do you have anything coming out next?
Yeah, so we have a whole bunch. All our summer beers are on. I like fruit beers, so we have a blueberry, strawberry cream ale, the pineapple saison, and we have a goza that we made with cranberry. We also have a blueberry sour we just put on this weekend, and a pineapple habanero we put on this weekend. And I'm drinking now is our Kolsch, which is our Cousin Town Kolsch, which we made last year for the first time. It's one of my favorites, and we just had that come out in cans and on tap. I just really like it.
I got here too. I actually got a couple open. I have that and the Clear Cut IPA open. One thing we didn't get to is the history behind the Island Dog name. How'd you land on that?
So when we were coming up with the idea of opening a brewery, we needed a name. We had a whole list. I think we started with about 50 different options and slowly whittled them down. A lot of them were funny, but they probably wouldn't be funny 3 or 4 or 5 years after you open. A lot of them were close to breweries that already existed. And one of the important things, I have an IT background, is I wanted to make sure I could have a website with the brewery name and not have to do, some initials or numbers to make that work. The name Island Dog comes from the fact that my wife Jody is from Mount Desert Island. She's from Southwest Harbor, and we have two rescue dogs. One's from Puerto Rico, and the other one's from Costa Rica. So I don't exactly know who thought of it. We kind of put that together, and that's how we came up with the name. For our logo, we worked with a friend of Jody's, college friend who's a graphic designer. I thought it was going to take us a couple days or a week to come up with the logo, about 3 months of back and forth before we had what we liked.
Yeah, it's an awesome logo, though. I love the hat you got with the gray and green. So
Definitely
landed on a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything in business is always harder and takes longer than you think.
Yep. And what kind of dogs are the rescue dogs that you have?
They're both they're mutts. The one from Puerto Rico, his name is Mateo. He's about 60 pounds. He's black, probably a lab pit bull mix maybe. It's hard to tell. And the little one, Felix, he's black as well. He's about 24 pounds. Costa Rica, we're not really sure what he is. They almost look like a smaller version of each other, but they're not related at all.
Yeah, we adopted a rescue dog when we moved up here to Maine in October. He came from Georgia, actually. We got him at ARLGP here in Westbrook. And he is a pit bull mixed with Chihuahua. So he's like a mini pit bull almost. It's funny. Good mix.
You also have your dog is he a mascot? Is that what that is? Your Porter the Island Dog?
Yes, we have Porter as our mascot that comes
Very
out
cool.
sometimes. He's a little hot in summer, but he does come out for events.
Now,
I
which
enjoy
one are
watching
you
the
suiting up?
Instagrams of him.
Tim is way too big to fit in the mascot costume. Tim's like, I don't know, you met Tim. He's like 6'5".
Mm-hmm.
He will not fit. So it's usually me. The one thing I forgot to mention is I mentioned all the fruit beers. We do have IPAs, and you have the clear cut. We also have a new version of our New England IPA, the Foggy Beach, which people really like.
And on all of your cans, they're really very creative, and I have a creative background working in marketing and design. I love all of your cans and how colorful they are and vibrant. Who is kind of behind the designs on those, and do you still incorporate, the background with the dogs and everything into the styles that you're putting out?
Yeah, so we actually went through several iterations. Our original can artwork was done by Heidi Geis. She did the 48 beer project. She traveled from Maine around the country and did beer labels in every state. She's kind of retired from commercial work now, and we actually met a new a graphic artist from Maine. Her name's Bethany. She actually approached us and said she was interested in doing it, and she's the one that has done the Foggy Beach and the St. Hubbins labels. And then we have another Mike, a graphic designer, who's a long-time customer. And at one point we were talking about redoing some labels. And he said, I can help you with that. So he started doing templates, and now he's also doing some full label design. He did the Captain Tucker Strawberry label and our Angry Nun Rye IPA, which will be out in about a month.
That sounds cool. Can you tell us a bit about that? So
I wanted to do an IPA that was a little bit different, and I had a customer who kept asking me to make a rye IPA. Since we're small and I can do little batches on the fly, I tried one for, it was early winter, came out like in February, and people really liked it.
So we had a customer who requested rye IPA. He likes the flavor rye. I did a little investigating, came up with a recipe, and it's like a New England light IPA with the rye. The rye gives a little bit of a spice, and then we used a bunch of different hops, and it came out really good, and I'm really looking forward to making it again.
Nice.
I'm sorry, go on.
I'm a big rye whiskey fan, so that should be definitely a good one to try. Do you want to take us a little bit through the brewing process of your beers?
Sure. So we have a 5-barrel system. We get about 150 gallons of beer out of a batch. Typical brew day for me is about 6 hours if I do a single batch, and about 10 hours if I do 2 batches. Currently, we have 4 5-barrel fermenters and 3 10-barrels. So I brew twice the 10-barrel fermenters. We take the grains, and they go through a mill, so it crushes the grains up. From there, they go into the mash tun. In the mash tun is where we add the warm water, the enzymes that naturally occur in the grains help convert the starches in the grain to sugar, and that's what the yeast needs to make the alcohol. That process is 60 minutes to 120 minutes, depending on the kind of beer we make. Usually the higher the alcohol, the longer the mash takes. From there, we move it into the kettle where we boil it for an hour. The boiling process kills any wild yeast or bacteria and helps break out all the proteins, which make beer hazy. So when you do a New England IPA, you don't want that to happen. When that's done, we then move the beer through our heat exchanger, which cools it down from 212 to about 100 to about 75 degrees, and we move it into one of the fermenters.
And how are you sourcing the ingredients that you're using, obviously, in all the beers, but also in the process itself? Where are you sourcing most of your ingredients from?
So we use a mix. We use some grains from local malt house, either Blue Ox or the main malt house. We also get some main grains that are processed through one of the bigger companies. Our fruit that we use in the beer, we use a fruit puree, and our blueberry wheat, we use its main local wild blueberries that we use in that one. Hops is a mix. We use as much local hops as we can get. Recently, the local hops have been really popular and they sell out pretty quickly, which is really good. And more people are planting more hops every year. But there's several different farms, Alna, the Hop Yard, and a couple of small ones where we get local hops.
So that's something that I've been curious about. I haven't gotten to do a ton of research on, but I know a lot of breweries I'm seeing doing sort of single hop varieties and things. How do the different varieties of hops affect the beer?
I'm sorry, you broke up. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Basically what I was asking is I've seen a lot of breweries that have been using one hop varieties and really starting to label, what hops they're putting in their beers and what mixes of them. How does the different hop varieties, is it sort of like wine grapes, and how do those affect the taste of the beers?
So there is a lot of hops on the market now. I remember when I started home brewing back in early 90s, you could get about 6 different varieties of hop. I think the last time I looked at one of the hops was there were over 100. They grow hops in the US, Australia, Europe, South Africa, New Zealand, all are areas where they grow hops. There's quite a bit of difference in the flavors. The 2 big groups of hops are the piney hops, which you see a lot of West Coast IPAs, and they more have a piney flavor, versus citrusy hops you see in the East Coast, like a Citra or Mosaic. The German noble hops in English are a little more on the piney side. And that has a lot, the hop you pick has a lot to do with the flavor of the beer. We do a single hop beer. It's our Silver Hound, which we use fresh hops from the hop yard. We get actually the hops right off the vine. They're not dried, they're not pelletized. They smell really pungent, they smell really good. We'll put them in the boil and we make a batch. We didn't do it last year, we did it 2 years before. We'll be doing it this September. I'm really looking forward. That beer comes out really nice. Has a real fresh, lemony taste to it from the local hops that we use. We use what do we use? Sterling, the local Sterling hops.
Sounds delicious. Definitely gonna have to give that one a try when you guys have it out. When it comes to ingredient selection and different varieties of beer, like an IPA versus the Kolsch or versus a sour, how do you choose what you're putting in them to make a different style?
The styles come down to different grains. So the different kinds of malt. Pale malt is the base malt for all beers. It makes a really light color beer. It's not very malty. Then there's different, the longer they leave it in the kiln, the darker it gets, the more caramelized sugars and the different flavors. I really like, there's a local Vienna that they make at Blue Ox Malt House. It just has a lot of biscuity flavors. It's really has a lot of good flavors to it. It's really good, especially in brown ales. Lighter beers, typically you don't use it. You don't want the malty taste to it, or you don't want dark color. And the longer it's roasted, the darker. Something like a chocolate, it'll actually, if you chew on it, it'll taste a little bit like a roasted espresso bean, and you get chocolate and coffee flavors from the grain. So depending on, if I wanted to make a brown ale, we'd use more darker grains, and I use more of a traditional hop, usually from like England or Germany. Whereas making a New England IPA, we use mostly pale, keep it very light, and you use the New World, like the Citra or a Mosaic hop, to give it that really citrusy flavor that people like.
And you said you tend to lean more towards the fruity sort of citrusy beers. So do you tend to lean towards more of those Eastern hops when you're brewing your different beers?
I vary a lot. It depends. Like I said, we have a lager coming out that I just brewed, and that one's very traditional with German hops. I wanted that to be a very European lager flavor. So using the proper yeast and the hops really makes the different beers taste different. One of the things that I do a little bit different is I use lots of different yeast. I think so far this I've used 12 different varieties of yeast, which really help make the different beers taste like different instead of all kind of tasting the same. A lot of times, like when I was home brewing, you just use one or two yeasts, but you don't really get the variety.
Yeah, and we have a variety of beers here that you guys sent over when the Nick picked up. And we'd love to kind of walk through those beers that you sent and kind of hear a bit more about each one. So Nick, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so when I was in there, one of the ones that you seemed really excited about was the new Kaisertown that we were talking about earlier. So you want to start by walking us through this one here? I have it. I'm sipping on it right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm drinking as well. So a Kolsch is a German-style beer from Cologne area, Germany. I get yeast that was sourced from there originally, so it has a very authentic taste. It's a lighter beer. It's a good summer ale. Kolsch is almost like a blend between a lager and an ale. I use a German hop called Relax that actually has a little bit of a black tea flavor, which I think gives a little more flavor to the beer. But it's very light, and other than that, pretty traditional Kolsch. And the name comes from the air. I grew up originally in Buffalo, and it's a neighbor I grew up in Buffalo is called Kaisertown.
Oh, nice. And so next we'll go into the IPA you sent over here, the Clear Cut. Let's take us through this IPA.
So a Clear Cut, that was one of the beers we brewed when we first opened. So that it was one of our first four. It's kind of our flagship beer, that and the blueberry. That is not quite a New England IPA, but more of East Coast. It's lighter. It has Citra and some other citrusy hops, but it's more of a moderately hopped beer. It's not quite a hop bomb. I like it. I think it's a good, refreshing, middle of the road kind of IPA.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that it's not too overly hoppy or bitter or anything. It's a nice, really easy drinking IPA.
And the name from that was a nickname that we had for my father. We refer to him as a clear cutter because he loved cutting down trees.
Oh, that's very neat. Do you have a lot of your beers that are tied to family and friends?
Yeah, coming up with names is a challenge. There's so many breweries, not just in Maine, but in the country, that when we try to come up with a new beer name, you have to do a lot of searching to make sure either no one else has a name or it was used so much that no one can claim it as their own. And we do a little variety of both, depending on what we need. But we try to come up with things that have some kind of family or friend meaning to us.
That's awesome. One of the other beers that we have here is the St. Hubbins. So this is a sour ale, and I'm a big sour ale fan. I think that's probably my favorite type of beer, just any sour. Can you tell us a bit more about that one?
Sure. So the St. Hubbins, I like the Goza style. It's a style that 5 years ago was almost gone. Now I see a lot of the craft breweries make it. It's a German sour ale. It's a little more mild on the sour note, and it's brewed with salt because the water in that area was a little bit salty. So we use sea salt to add the salt flavor. The version we have now, we brewed with cranberries. We've done different versions, and we're going to do a blackberry one next. We use a special Goza yeast that I get to give it that sour taste. And again, it's like a mild sour.
And
go on.
So with the making of the sour, do those ferment any longer or anything than a standard like an IPA or something that's a bit more common?
Some do. The Goza, sometimes with the sour, you'll ferment it out normally and then either add a souring yeast later or do a kettle sour. With the Goza, that yeast ferments out in about 2 weeks, so it's pretty standard. We don't have to do a secondary fermentation with that one.
And one of the beers that I know is one of Nick's favorites that he has brought around here and gifted to us a bunch of times is the beer called Blue. It being one of his favorites with the blueberry, can you tell us just a bit more about that one? And we're all big fans over here.
Yeah, so when I was homebrewing, I made a blueberry beer. This is a similar recipe. So it was a blueberry wheat I made with frozen local blueberries. At the time when I was homebrewing, I was putting 9 pounds of blueberries for 5 gallons of beer. Commercially, you can't do that. But we found if we use blueberry puree, we can get the flavor and the color, and you don't quite need use much. So we got some local wild Maine blueberries. They're pureed for us. We get them in 42-pound containers, and typically we use 2 for a 140-gallon batch of beer. So that way, that's where you get the color and that nice blueberry flavor and smell. One of my favorite canning days is when we can the beer called Blue, because that blueberry smell, the whole brewery just smells like blueberries.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, the wheat ales are definitely my go-to for a while. Just a really, really easy drinking, always reliable wheat. So where can people find your beers, in stores, or are you only selling them out of the tap room?
So we sell all our available beers out of the tap room, but we are available in 9 Hannafords now. So the 2 in South Portland, over by the mall, and then Knightville. And then we have the Scarborough location, Riverside in Portland, Westbrook, Back Bay, and we just got into the Saco and the one in Gray Road, I think is Yarmouth, Hannaford's. We're supposed to be in the new Market Basket when it opens soon, which is really exciting. And then we have lots of little stores that we sell to. We have a distributor now. So a year ago, we distributed our own beer. So we always knew where every case of beer went. With the distributor, we don't find out till 30 days later where they sold the beer.
Do you have any plans to continue to expand that to maybe down to like Massachusetts or the other bordering states into New England?
We have started talking about trying to find a distributor to maybe get into Massachusetts, just because there's so much population there. It's tough, and when we started the brewery, one of the things I wanted to do, because I didn't have a lot of brewing experience, I wanted to kind of grow slowly. So we started with our core beers, and we slowly added new beers. I haven't done sours until this year. I want to do some barrel aging, but everything we do is a big learning process, and you want to go slowly enough so you don't have a big mistake that you regret later on.
You're doing a great job so far.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we'd love to have you here.
The only thing go on.
Oh, go ahead.
The only thing I want to add is one of the reasons I started the brewery is because I love beer. I love brewing. I love talking about beer. One of the things, Tim or I, one of us is almost always here. Lately, we've both been here all the time with the whole new being outside. And I just like to talk to people about beer. We have a homebrew club that meets here now once a month, and it's just fun talking with people about making beer.
Oh,
that's great. It's
cool.
Amazing to have a passion too for what you do, and I think it's so apparent when we talk to people, and you definitely have that knowledge and expertise just by teaching yourself. And I think a lot of the time it's just very cool to learn from somebody who has been able to do that. So where can our audience find you online and on social media?
We have our Facebook page at Island Dog Brewing, and our website is islanddogbrewing.com. You can order online, and it has all our hours and when we're open and our beers. You can have delivery through CarHop, carhop.com. We'll get home delivery of our beer.
Awesome. Yeah. So we had a great time talking tonight. Sorry that we lost some connection there. We'll get rid of some of that extra lag from there, so it'll sound good in the podcast. But other than that, I think we had a great conversation with you, and we really enjoyed having you on. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cheers.
It was a lot of fun to be on.
Be sure to follow us on social at Uncorked Corner and on the blog at uncorkedcorner.com for a taste of more food and beverage content.
And if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave a comment, subscribe, rate, and review on whatever podcast platform you prefer. Thanks for listening.